Coming up next, highlights from the gubernatorial candidates panel discussion. The following is a production of ReNewableNow.biz and Grow Smart Rhode Island, and is made possible by Bank of America, GZA, Geoenvironmental Incorporated, National Grid, and the Arpin Group.
We have 2 minutes for opening statements, and first statement, Clay Pell.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm here because I believe that Rhode Island needs a new direction. I think we have to change the politics and cynicism that we have as usual. And that we need a new generation of leadership to move Rhode Island forward. My background is not that of an elected official. I've served as an officer in the Coast Guard, as a leader in the Department of Education, and as Director for Strategic Planning on President Obama's national security team. And I believe that my background, particularly in strategic planning, brings a unique set of experience to the challenges that Rhode Island faces. Rhode Island grew because we were at the intersection of the movement of goods, people, and ideas. And I believe that's how we can grow again, that what we need is leadership to unlock that potential. Smart growth. And I've been talking to Scott about some of these ideas for many years. And I'm proud to have put forward a specific plan that takes an asset-based approach to growing the state's economy, that expands our marine-based economy, that builds on our natural resource-based economy, that promotes our creative economy, our knowledge sector. And yesterday, I put out an infrastructure plan. It's called Building a Resilient Rhode Island. As an officer in the Coast Guard, I saw how climate change is an incredible challenge across the country and the world, but also how economies are beginning to respond. And I believe that Rhode Island is uniquely positioned to be at the forefront of developing the industry that will respond to climate change and will build strong, resilient infrastructure as a model, not only for the region, but for the world. I look forward to putting my unique background and experience forward today in this discussion and in the weeks ahead so that we can achieve that vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, Ken Block.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Happy to be here today, and I want to thank Grow Smart for my second go-around in addressing you and my ideas for what we need to do to help take this great state and help it realize its full potential. You know, I look around Providence in particular. I walk with my family through the parks and the skating rink, and the first thing I think when I look at Providence is what potential we have here. It's walkable, it's accessible, it's everything that a city needs to be. But we have one problem. The problem is that we're not economically competitive. The problem is that the businesses and the jobs that we so desperately need to have here usually end up across the border in Massachusetts. And we have to change that dynamic, and we can change that dynamic. We have to make sure that Rhode Island and Providence both are places where businesses can look to bring jobs to instead of run away from, and we can get there. I have a series of plans that are specifically created to make Rhode Island economically competitive with our neighboring states. When we do this, we will then be able to change the dynamics that frankly threaten everything that we want to do here. We have a gigantic budget deficit coming at us in the next few years, but we can, in fact, I believe, grow our way out of it if we plan for it now, acknowledge it's coming, and take the steps necessary to do it. Politics as usual in this state is largely to blame for how we got here. The activity of kicking the can down the road, ignoring the problems that face us, is no way to fix those problems. We can fix them, we must fix them. And I sit here in front of you today instead of stand to appeal to you, to have heart, to have hope, and to know that we can change the things that we need to change to make this state better And I look so much forward to telling you about those ideas as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Next up, Providence Mayor Angel DeVeris.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you, Smart Growth, for this opportunity to come and talk with you about creative placemaking. I think being mayor over the last several years of the city of Providence have given me a unique perspective with respect to that. I think back over the last several years, and I think of some of the things that we've been able to do together. I think about the fact that our arcade is now open and alive again, a building that had been shuttered for a long time, the oldest indoor arcade mall in U.S. history. I think about the fact that the Providence G is now open, where the gas building used to be, and the impact that that's had. I think about the fact that Johnson & Wales has preserved the building and now has it, the only physician assistant building in the state. We also, just across the street at Hasbro. Hasbro is now here in downtown Providence and making a big difference as well. And if you go across the street there, you'll see the Providence G, the Dean Hotel, that is a wonderful, wonderful new addition to downtown Providence. And that has been a combination of the private sector and the public sector. All of the buildings that I just mentioned to you had some involvement from the public sector, but they were also private developers. And that's part of what we need to do to preserve the wonderful history that is our state, and also to encourage economic development in our state. I think in terms of creative placemaking, and I think about the First Works Festival that we had on Kennedy Plaza, where we transformed it into a wonderful space, and we had people from all across the state coming to enjoy our city. Tomorrow, and I see Barnaby here, tomorrow we will kick off the water fire season, and we'll have hundreds of thousands of people from around the country come and visit us because of a man's idea to convert a river into a meeting place. We have tremendous assets here in our state, and we've been very, very fortunate. I'm glad that you got a chance to see some of the highlights regarding some of the recognitions that we've received as America's best small city, as an exciting mid-sized city, as a walkable downtown. We need to focus on our strengths. Statewide, I look forward to working with you to help grow our economy and get people back to work here in Rhode Island. And that starts with job training and making sure that we can fill the jobs that are available now. It means investing in infrastructure, and not just our roads and bridges, but our school buildings, and I have a plan to do just that. It means absolutely supporting the historic tax credit because it will help develop buildings across the state, and it will get local Rhode Islanders back to work right away. It also means promoting tourism, which I released earlier this week, because we are a state that relies heavily on tourism, but does not invest enough in tourism. I look forward to doing more. So I look forward to this discussion today and talking with you about what we can do to strengthen our state.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Cranston Mayor Alan Fung.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, to Grow Smart, Scott, Mark, for moderating. It really is an honor. I'm a Rhode Islander born and raised. I love this great state of Rhode Island. It's got so much to offer. It really does. You know, over 45 years ago, my parents traveled halfway around the world from China to the United States and chose Rhode Island because it's such a great place to live, to work. It was where they started their business, right in Cranston, a small family business, and also play and start a family so that we have the opportunities that I and my two sisters have been privileged to be a part of in this great state. So it is a state of opportunity. But you know what's also great about it? Let me just talk about convenience. The opportunity that I just had, I just jumped off a plane a half hour ago, and I'm here before all of you. I was down in Washington, D.C. You don't get that opportunity in many other states across the country. We're centrally located between New York and Boston. We have so much to offer. And it is still a great place to live. It's the ocean state. It's a great place to play. We offer so many recreational opportunities, not only in my great city of Cranston, but in many other parts of the state. Unique aspects. And I've been proud to be part of leading the renaissance in the great city of Cranston, our third largest city, which is a real great microcosm of what we offer in the state. We've got farmlands, out in Western Cranston and been privileged to be part of preserving some of that farmland, so it's not overdeveloped. We have suburbia. We also have an urban center, and we also have, in the eastern portion of the city, waterways, Narragansett Village, and helping to protect Stillhouse Cove, and now working with many of the yacht clubs, unfortunately, to rebuild because of some accidents that have happened. But that's been the great part about building that renaissance in Cranston, because we're redeveloping, putting new face on Garden City with new developers, taking old properties like the former training school site that we all remember as the Bad Boy School, and turning it into a great mixed-use development. That's the exciting part of the job as the chief executive, and that's what I hope to do as your next governor. And if I'm privileged to be that, we need to create and focus on that third piece. It's a great place to live. We need to make sure it also has a great economic environment. Because when I was down in DC, I was with many Rhode Islanders who want to come back, many young faces. We have to transform Rhode Island, just like we've transformed Cranston, where we've had an environment creating over 1,000 new jobs. Well, that has to happen in cities and towns across the state, building sustainable communities so that it's also a great place to live and play. And that's what I hope to do to transform that state, making sound policy decisions so the next generation have the same opportunities that I did and my parents did as well.
Thank you. Okay, so let's talk now about asset and place-based economic development, which is a centerpiece of smart growth. But we're going to talk about it in the context of your leadership style. I mean, one of the slides that was showing was I'm part of the 18%, meaning referring to the Gallup poll that said only 18% of Rhode Islanders thought this was a great place to live, despite Rhode Island showing up on the top of many lists, or near the top of many lists. Do you believe there's a preoccupation on the negative? And if so, how would you, as governor, advocate for needed reforms while at the same time lifting Rhode Islanders' collective self-esteem and leveraging our state assets to expand economic opportunity? Essentially, I look at this as what would be your leadership approach? And I'll ask Alan Fung first.
You know,
and let's try to keep these answers brief because we're running well behind.
You know, Rhode Island has so much to offer, just like I highlighted, and I will be the #1 cheerleader for the great state of Rhode Island, just like I've been doing in Cranston. We work with business owners to create a better economic environment, work with a lot of our key stakeholders at the state and federal level to make sure we preserve and grow our city in the right way. That's what we also have to do as a state. And you're never going to hear me talk bad about Rhode Island, unlike someone who's sitting to my right who called our state a hall of shame. You're never going to hear that from a true Rhode Islander who knows about the great assets that we have in this state. You know, we need to make sure that we invest in some of the things that we talked about, the tax credits. Those are the ways that we can preserve our history. We have a rich history, and as the chief executive, I'd be proud to make sure we work with business owners to promote the best interests of our residents and make sure that it is a great place, sustainable place for the future. Village centers, neighborhoods, preserving our past, but focusing on the future.
Now, one of the things, though, is if you're making if you are just positive in what you're talking about, does that, though, preclude you from making a sort of clear-eyed look at what the problems are? Because there are problems, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, last night, I was with 24 Rhode Islanders, many young faces that want to come back to this great state, to be with their families, to enjoy, you know, what we have in this great state. But they can't, because we don't have a productive economy. And that's why I put forward just a short couple weeks ago that $200 million tax reduction plan to help make it open for business, reducing our corporate tax, having that minimum corporate tax at $250, getting our sales tax down to our border, and one thing that impacts many business owners and many individuals is that death tax. Let's treat it as a true exemption at the federal level so that families, middle-class families, all families are not impacted by this heavy burden.
Okay, you really didn't answer the follow-up, but that's okay. We'll move on. Clay Pell, what do you have to say about your style?
Well, to the question, I do believe that there is too much focus on the negative, and that I am an optimist about the future of this state. Sometimes people say that there are insufficient resources in the state of Rhode Island. I reject that notion. I believe that together, the people of the state, the people who are here in this room, the institutions of Rhode Island far exceed any of the challenges that we face. And what we need is a leader, a governor, who can work with people in the room, who can work with people across the state to unlock that potential, to bring people together. Just an example, I have proposed an internship program to make Rhode Island the first state in the country where every high school student would have the opportunity to participate in an internship. That's innovative thinking because it brings businesses together with communities, a lot of the mentors together with students. It gets people involved again. It doesn't have to cost huge amounts of money. It's about looking for value in all of the divisions that we have in the state.
I actually question your assumption that people think there aren't enough resources or talent in Rhode Island. I think the issue that a lot of people bring up is money. And I think that Mayor Tavares sort of faced this in the city, which is that when you're faced a big budget deficit, that's real. Those are real numbers. How do you combat that in terms of from the governor's desk?
It is real. You confront it with priorities. And when I was director for strategic planning on the national security team, we also faced a challenge of limited resources, competing priorities, and the need then to set priorities. And what we have not done in this state, where we have an $8.5 billion federal budget, state budget, is to prioritize areas of growth. And so what I'm proposing is that we start promoting things like our agricultural economy, things like our maritime economy, areas that make sense and can grow the economy, but don't have to cost huge amounts of money either.
Ken, what are your thoughts?
My background is a small business owner in this state. I have two of them. One of my businesses, we deliver food stamp benefits to the citizens of Texas and the island of Puerto Rico, billions of dollars. My company is a leading expert in the food stamp area, and we're also leaders in the identification of waste and fraud in Health and Human Services spending programs. As I alluded to in our opening, the problem that we suffer from is an economic problem. And that's the thing that you least hear candidates for governor typically talk about. That's the crisis that faces us. The fact that we have one of the country's highest unemployment rates and one of the lowest ranked economic climates are entangled together. These two things come together. The original question was, what do you do about Rhode Islanders' poor self-image of our state? To a large extent, that self-image is a well-earned reputation. We have an unresponsive government to our needs. We have unresponsive candidates to the basic needs of the citizens. Everywhere I go to, I talk to people who are hurting. I talk to people whose children have left the state. I talk to people who have to travel out of state to find the jobs that they need. These are the things that most matter. These are the things that have to be corrected. Why should we have the country's worst-ranked unemployment insurance system? We should not. We can fix that. Why does our temporary disability insurance cost more than almost every other state in the country because of overuse and misuse? It shouldn't, and we will fix that. The problem with our government is career politicians. The problem with our government is poorly executed government. When we get our governmental act together and we have the right leader in place, pushing the right proposals and ideas to bring the cost of government down, to prepare us for the coming deficit, we can walk our way out of the mess that we're in. It will take hard work, but it requires acknowledging the fact that we have the problem and putting the person into the governor's seat who has the tools to address the problem.
It doesn't, I know you're not thinking this way, but you sound a little bit scoldy. So how does, as a leader of a people, how do you bring people along with that, with your agenda?
At the end of the day, what most people who I'm speaking to are looking for, basically, are solutions. They're looking for the answers to the problems that they most care about. And I'm providing those answers to them, And the more that we talk to people, the more they like those answers.
Mayor Taveras.
Thank you. I think that it's true that here in Rhode Island, we focus too much on the negative. I was not surprised, unfortunately, with the numbers of the Gallup poll because I've traveled across the state and I've talked with people, and we have that sense of that we're not moving in the right direction, and we're also, I think, overly negative on our state. That's not to say that we don't have issues. I've been mayor of the capital city for almost 3.5 years, and I see issues each and every day. But I think part of what we have to do as leaders is to inspire and to remind people that we can do great things, to let people know that there is a reason that people across the country, outsiders, I think have a much better image of our state and some of the great assets that we have than Rhode Islanders do. You know, the other day I was with the mayor of Denver. He was here. We were at Rhode Island College, and he started to invite people to Denver. He wanted people to come to Denver, and I said to him, "How are the beaches in Denver?" And I said that because Denver's a great city. It's a wonderful place, and Mile High and all that. But it's not Providence. It's not Rhode Island. We have to celebrate our successes, and that's something I've tried to do as mayor. I'll give you one example. When we won Bloomberg Philanthropy's Mayor's Challenge and beat out 304 other cities across the country to come in first and win $5 million, I try to emphasize that to everyone because I wanted them to know that we can compete with anyone, anywhere, anytime, and we can win. Now, that's not to say that there aren't other challenges. There are, and we need to face them head on. But we need to continue to try to inspire people even in difficult times. I know that having faced a $110 million structural deficit, realizing that we could run out of cash in the city of Providence, and still, with all of that, bringing people together, all of our institutions, all of our unions, everyone together to solve those problems. And at the same time, making investments in infrastructure. A $40 million road bond, and you'll be seeing more of those roads getting paved. You'll be seeing Kennedy Plaza changing. You're going to see a lot more investments going forward, investments in tourism. We need to do the same at the state. We need to remind people of the great, great assets we have. Be mindful of the challenges, invest in the right priorities, and keep us moving and get more people working. If we have more people working in our state, that perception will change.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on next to the role of economic development initiative programs, and specifically in this case, we'll talk about the historic tax credit, obviously a Grow-Smart favorite. Just a little background, from 2002 to 2008, it was the most successful historic tax credit program in the country. It stimulated more than 100 revitalization projects, more than 20 communities, generated an estimated 20,000 jobs, had a more than 5-to-1 return on investment. As we know, it was reintroduced in 2013 in a limited fashion. The governor has put even more money in the next budget for it. So do you support the governor's proposal? Would you support further efforts to extend the program as governor, given that enactment this year of the governor's proposal will likely sustain the program only for another few years? And also, how would you deal with the complex budget implications that go along with this program, and that, to a large degree, were the reason for its suspension before? And first, let's ask Ken.
I don't need to look any further than Lowell, Massachusetts, to understand the power of historic tax credits and their ability to fundamentally turn a community around, because they certainly did that in Lowell. I'm supportive of a historic tax program. I just want to make sure that the program is well administered and that we don't sort of fall into the classic Rhode Island-ism where those who are most connected are those most likely to get those credits. As long as we're assessing those programs based on the merits, as long as we're picking the projects based on their total positive economic development potential, I'm wholly in support of the program.
And how would you deal with I mean, part of it is that the state is giving up revenue, but the cities and towns are gaining revenue, at least in the short run. How do you deal with that imbalance?
Well, the wider question that you're asking ultimately is, how do we pay for everything?
Well,
And,
there is
right,
that,
because
yes.
that's really, and one of my main focuses and concerns as we move through this race and into the next governorship is 4 to 5 years out, our projected budget deficit approaches and it goes through $400 million. So our ability to pay for everything that we do is substantially in peril right now unless we begin taking action right now to not only close that budget deficit, but proactively take the steps necessary to improve our economic outlook, bring new employers and new jobs into the state, and by all means possible ensure that the development on the 195 land has the highest positive economic potential that we can make on that land.
Okay. Angel.
I do support the historic tax credit. I think it's a wise investment on our part. And I would suggest to Mr. Block, you don't even have to go to Lowell to see that. You can see it right here in our state. You can see it in the capital city. You can see it all across the state of Rhode Island. You can see it with the Rising Sun Mills. You can see with all the buildings that we've been able to preserve because of that, with the Dynamo House that we're working diligently to try to make sure we preserve that beautiful structure and help create economic development and create a critical mass in the Knowledge District as well. It really is about what makes us special as a state. Part of what makes us special is that we have preserved our history. If you go to Worcester and you go back and you look at some of what they did in the 70s and what they did downtown, it's a very different place than Providence because they didn't preserve their history. We have preserved our history. This is a smart investment. This will generate employment. It can act as the stimulus to our economy. So it is a good investment for us to make.
This has been a RenewableNow.biz and Grow Smart Rhode Island production.